Alright, time for another edition of What the Fuck Happening Here in Mendham. Well, look, I'll go with that beginning, even though it's not very good. But whatever, you know. Can't, nobody's perfect. That's sort of the subject of the video a little bit, in the sense of context and the struggle to be a very good thinking, logical, sensible, fair to the facts realist, and finding some way to enjoy being alive in that context. Like there's some sort of facts that are actually good and fun. Yeah, are there? Is there any, I mean, clinical, real thing you can know about something that makes you at all feel better or good about being alive? I guess I'd sort of argue that it's almost like being a doctor. You know, the more you dig into the guts of the thing, the more disgusting the whole organism becomes. It is just a worm, mouth, ass, there's nothing, there's no good news. There's nothing that's going to make you hornier, and that's the whole, there's so much of that kind of bullshit, like in every part of life you can find some metaphor for that, where people, they have sex in the dark, a lot of people, because it really is, it ends up not being something beautiful, and so they force it to be beautiful, by imagining being with somebody entirely different or something like that. Imagining something else happening, kind of thing, or whatever. Just saying, it's just part of the facts of life, and they're not really great. So, and it's just, all of it's like that. If you just take the silver lining crap off the fake and phony pretense of people, all their bullshit. It's just bugs, and they're not even smart bugs. I mean, they think they're smart because they're smarter than dumb bugs, but no, they're still on the dumb spectrum, and so it's all kind of farcical and humiliating, if you really look at it. So life's a piece of shit if you really look at it. Monty Python comes up at the end of my video there, and so that's sort of where I'm still stuck, is with that notion. So the point of the video was sort of to describe the duality of your personal happiness versus what you do to the world. So your happiness footprint, as it affects you, versus your happiness footprint based on where, what you've done to the other sentient life forms on Earth. And, it's just a reality that you're only one part, of the collective, and it's not a single player game. And I just keep emphasizing that because that's the only fair context, is to recognize you have a huge bias in your own interest, and when you're going to act in the world, that huge bias should be tempered with the knowledge that, oh yeah, I have a bunch of, cheat code and rationalizations, for defending my existence, but do I really have any for defending existence? Yeah, no, I don't think so. Not like I say, unless you're a sadist or something. If you enjoy watching tragedy and horror, then this is a great TV show and you're really happy. But if you don't, this show sucks, frankly. And it ought to just be described for what it is, way too expensive. I mean, it's mass murder for a box of Cheerios. That doesn't make any sense. Cheerios. Yeah, it's pretty clever, my brain, to pick Cheerios. I mean, it could have said Fruit Loops, right? Because, you know, but no, it said Cheerios, like happy, cheer, you know. Kind of funny. Anyway, so I mean, our brains really can do an awful lot of clever and smart things, and it's just sad that people have devoted them to rationalizing nonsense, silly religions, and, you know, wooey fables about traveling the universe or some other kind of nonsense. I mean, just absolute bullshit. They just live in seas of bullshit. Anyway, you know, trying to think of some way of, you know, bullshit mermaids or something like that. But anyway, so we'll play the video, and it's got some politics in it and some stuff, just because it was kind of a distracting week, and you know, distracting in the sense, you know, that I wish it was only stupid Republicans, but there's lots of stupid Democrats, and so it's just so irritating, because you know, I just can't, you know, there has to be something better than these two moronic choices. So anyway, leave us play the video, because, you know, you really do have to be humiliated. And all right, so I think it was just a building character argument. So this has a lot to do with, like, you can take this idea of your happiness versus your fairness to the truth, okay? Because, you know, the truth is going to hurt you, so you can't pay too much attention to it. You know, I'm blighted currently by the truth that, you know, I'm of that age where some sort of horrible disease thing can, you know, show up any day now, and that thought just kind of lingers and haunts me, and gets in my way, you know, in terms of, you know, just, it's a boner killer. And you know, you're just like, you know, I don't need that shit, you know, I don't need to be bothered because I can't do anything about it, so there's no point in thinking about it. So that's the rationalization, and you try to get yourself to, you know, play the game as if you're indestructible, because if you don't, you're not going to have any fun. You know, and I mean, it's the truth. but it doesn't matter, because I'm a smart person. So I'm going to be aware of things that are real, you know, and I'm not going to worry about ghosts. I'm going to worry about, you know, real trees I might be walking into. All right, so that's one part of that. What was I talking about? Do you remember? Yeah, I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, kids. Yeah, so, you know, you can't, you know, if you raise your kid to be happy, he's going to be a preposterous asshole. And if you raise him to have character, then he's going to be like this. He's going to be constantly trying to figure out, am I doing the right thing? Am I being a selfish cunt? You know, if I really love her, I should let her go. You know, and that kind of, you know, it's like, you know, how miserable do I have to be, you know, to satisfy the good person necessity? And is any of it ever enough? Because frankly, you really can't do justice to all of the tragedy in the world and all the horror. You can't pay enough attention, and you know, and you can't devote yourself, because it is just, it's like being in an actual foxhole and fighting in an actual war, and it's you're going to end up shell-shocked and useless, you know, because you're going to be incapable of functioning. And frankly, for a good part of my life, I've been sort of disabled by, I don't know if I'd call it depression, but just the realization that this isn't a playable game. And you know, I just can't have any enthusiasm in pulling any levers, because you can't rely on what they're going to produce. And it sucks. Yeah. All right. Jump ahead. It says in there, they do haunt you, I think appropriately. Yeah, so but that's the real catch. It just is, you know, I think haunting is probably a good idea, way of saying it. This idea of guilt and responsibility, and it just kind of shows up as some sort of the ghost of or Jacob Marley. Yeah, he had kind of an attitude, you know, and it just kind of beats you up with you know, humbling reality, and just takes the, you know, it just makes it very hard to play along. You know, once you know there's, you know, there's no wishes in the birthday cake. You know, once you all the little things, you know, that just aren't there, and you know, it's not constructive to pay attention to the reality for you personally. And you being obsessed with your comfort makes you blind to all the responsibilities. So, I mean, you can't, you know, I don't know if there's any way to mix those two constructively to be able to maintain some sense of personal appreciation or enjoyment, and the mission, the war. So a plane crashes, 60 people, yeah, everybody cares. 120 people die all over the country. You know, so I was just bringing up the irony or stupidity of how we apportion our concern and care and all of that stuff, and there'll be tons of donations and tons of, you know, outpouring of for this, and there's something worse happening every single day, and we couldn't care less. So, you know, 120 people die every day in car accidents. Nobody cares. Then a bunch of those people, you know, it's not like airplanes where there's very few survivors. There's lots of survivors of car crashes who are disabled or burned or in some other way crippled for the rest of their life. So lots of collateral damage, in the sense that it's a lot more than 120 dead people. There's another 150 or 500 people whose lives are now, you know, fucked. And nobody cares, right? No, I mean, we as a culture don't have any media attention to that. We don't sit there and wallow in it because, well, first off, we don't get to see all the spectacular fires and all that kind of stuff, and that's really what a lot of people are in for it. You know, it's just to see the spectacle. I suppose if there was no spectacle, okay, if there was nothing to see, if they didn't have video of it, nobody'd care, right? So it would probably be a little more honest. Yeah, it's just right there, plainly in front of our face. This kind of hypocritical, inconsistent. That's probably a better word. Application of our concern and our love and all of that crap, and it just doesn't have any. It's not rational. It's not apportioned rationally. It's completely irrational. And that should be like a giveaway. That we're really not good enough for this job of being alive, because we can't do it very well. We can't do it very honestly, that's for sure. And I think that's, you know, it's not good. It's getting to a little bit of political crap about how, gee, these are really such shitty choices. But either, okay, so at least you missed some of that. So I already stated that statement, but yeah, I mean, it's this, you know, yeah, I don't know how to compare the two sides. I mean, what it is about their devotion to certain things, and you just say, why the fuck would they do that? So it's like, for me, the Democratic Party, you just went completely sideways when they became in love with, you know, poverty and stupidity, and, you know, want to put it on a pedestal somewhere and say, isn't the most beautiful and wonderful thing stupid, ignorant, dirty, stinking people? Isn't that just so spectacular? You know, they're so precious. Well, fuck you. You know, that's just ridiculous. So you can't buy into that nonsense. And then the weird thing is, the Republicans have flipped in some sense, in the sense that, what do I give a shit if, why, they're going to impose these stupid tariffs, and, they claim it's about some sort of fentanyl or something. It doesn't have anything to God. Everybody knows that's not why Trump gives a shit. And he says something like hundreds of thousands of deaths. What? Well, maybe 1,000. I mean, it's a ridiculous argument, right on its face. It's just, what is this about? I mean, what's the fucking point? Why do I want to unemploy a Canadian? It's just, how does that make any sense? I mean, it can't make any sense. I mean, maybe the Mexicans, you want to unemploy a Mexican, okay, they have a, lower standing in terms of public perception. But I mean, it's sort of ridiculous making this argument that I somehow need to steal their job when I don't want their job, right? I mean, frankly, you don't want the Mexicans' job. So what do you think we're going to accomplish? It just doesn't make much sense. So it made a lot of sense when, we had unions and people were making $30 an hour and we wanted to keep that kind of wage base. Well, then it makes sense to have tariffs, but it can't make any sense when, we're all working for $10 an hour and there's no way you can have a decent life on $10 an hour. So there's no argument here. I mean, the truth is, when I was a kid, you could work at like Dairy Queen and have a house and a real life. You could live on it. Yeah, can't do that anymore. So, I don't know, the whole thing is just so fucked up. Bizarrely fucked up. The idea that they think this is a reasonable political stance in America. Oh, you're right. So, yeah, it's not even just my, whatever, if somebody wants to call me some sort of thing because I'm not a big fan of poor people. But the very idea that the Democratic Party hasn't polled America and figured out that, like, by a huge majority, people don't want an open border. They don't want, as a fact, they don't want any kind of asshole to walk into America and pretend to be a citizen, okay? They don't want that. And for them to sit there and defend it is like, why are they doing that? What's the constituency here? And the only thing you can figure is there are actually communities where most of the people are grafting, welfare whore kind of communities, and somehow they have a great affection for creating a bigger and bigger mob of people who don't really want to be part of a civilization. They want to tear one down, something like that. I can't make any. I mean, if you can give me an explanation for why the Democratic Party became pro-immigration, please explain it to me, because it's fucking irrational. I mean, it's really a nice idea. Oh, we'll take care of the world's underprivileged. But it's just an absolute fact that the Democrats didn't want to take care of them either. It doesn't want to take care of American disabled people. It doesn't want to take care of American mentally ill. It doesn't want to take care of American homeless. So why the fuck are you talking like we can take on the world's problems? Because you've shown no ambition or willingness to do a motherfucking thing to help people, who are dysfunctional. You don't want to pay the fucking bill. This is ridiculous. It's a draconian affirmative action. It's just this subtle idea that if you... Right, so I was just talking about Trump doing the disgusting thing where, there's a plane crash and then he goes on a 5-minute rant about how it's Biden and Obama's fault, even though Reagan was the one who killed the Union, and, disrupted the whole fucking idea of air traffic control, because they were too expensive. So, I mean, hilarious nonsense. And, it's just so reckless. I mean, to talk about, and the list of, obviously, the list of preferential circumstances, paraplegics and dwarfs. Well, why should we discriminate against any? We know that industry, commercial industry, doesn't have any incentive to hire people that might be a little bit challenged and might need a little bit of extra considerations. So you do sort of have to do something to make up for that. And as long as they're equally qualified, that's the standard, what's the big gripe? I mean, it's just so fucking petty. And then when you start talking about white people, and you really know what it's about. Anyway, yeah, you can't even, there's just no, it's so bizarre. I mean, that somebody could get away with, doing the Hitler thing, and he got away with it. I mean, yeah, people are like, oh, yeah, he did the Hitler but it's like he did get away with it in the sense that somehow this isn't going to crush his businesses or do any of that. And you're just like, what the fuck is this about? And that's kind of the thing here, right? I mean, a 25% tariff is really a boycott, okay? I mean, it's a huge, disadvantage for a product when you have to put a 25% tariff on it. It's going to make it really hard for it to be competitive. So it's just a boycott. Well, why don't we boycott Tesla and boycott all this other bullshit? Is that what we want to get into, is a boycott war? I mean, who's going to win that? And exploit. I mean, I've boycotted personally Google and other things because, yeah, they're monsters. And that's the only weapon you have, is to not participate, not to fuel their horse shit. So, yeah, when it's necessary, but over fentanyl? Hilarious. I mean, it's the only reason. Look, the right wing was only against drugs because it's anti-Jesus. Jesus, probably wouldn't be a fan of heroin or something. Well, I don't even think it's that. So it's like Moses or something. Well, they wanted to be banning alcohol. I mean, frankly, I have some sympathy with the position of just banning any, legal, right to be mentally disabled on purpose. Yeah, I don't really think you probably have a right to do that except in your little house. So, yeah, if you want to do any of this shit in your house, that's fine, but don't do it anywhere near the public, live and let live and all that kind of crap. But again, these are people making a choice to be an asshole. Why are all of a sudden the Republicans worried about the victims of fentanyl? I mean, it's hardly the best and the brightest. They're not the ones going down. It's just such hypocrisy. It's not hypocrisy. It's just duplicity. It's just lying. It's just a fake and phony excuse for some sort of graft. And the fact that, there's just way too many people that can't see that. Oh, fuck you. I mean, so the real argument I'm making is people are just so stupid that what's the point of even talking? Because they're so stupid. Just to initiate the tactic is so dangerous. Okay, yeah, so even, the whole idea, there's very little, there's some talk about it, but I mean, they're really not getting to the point here that this is really reckless when you start engaging in this kind of stuff, because there's going to be so much waste. It's like shutting down the government. Everything costs like 5 times as much. It's this huge waste of resources and money, firing and rehiring and firing, paying off pensions, doing all. This is huge amounts of waste. And that's all this is going to do, is create a huge amount of waste. This disruption isn't I'm just saying the world economy after COVID and all this other bullshit and all of this, deficit spending and all this other crap. This is not what it's going to need. This isn't helping any. Anyway. Yeah, no, it's not good. And then the other, like I said, the opposite side wants to defend any kind of cultural degradation is somehow some sort of. So that's the truth of it. I mean, it's just, somehow all the institutions of America were somehow flawed, and we have to aggressively tear it down. And that's almost what they're for, is this complete debaucherous justification. Again, when they start defending shoplifting and all the rest of it, what the fuck is that? I'm supposed to vote for a party that's pro-shoplifting? Fuck that. Tipping over cars because your basketball team lost? Fuck that. Get one of those things where, you know, you might benefit the first 10 years and then you'll really pay for it in the next 9. Yeah, so it's all this whole argument about being productive, and it requires you to do all this seeing into the future because the future's really big. And, you know, we don't have the balls for that. You know, we got nothing to see, you know, can't see in our balls. So, yeah, it doesn't, you know, it just makes this whole thing very frustrating because you can't even be sure what the right thing to do is. And that sucks. But I'd say the general ideas of what right is to recognize that all the brains are important. They all need to feel good. Feeling bad is bad no matter what brain it's in. You know, all of that kind of, those simple principles. Well, then you won't get into too much trouble. But that's not really what people are doing. Look at this long-term thing. They don't look at the fact that, you know, everything has all of these implications, and like I just said, I mean, yeah, there's no simple subjects, really, you know, but they're not beyond our capacity to go through some of the arguments and explain. And you're saying, okay, that wasn't, you know, it's not that hard to do that, you know, to explain, like, okay, for a right to die, you really should give a person a right to say, look, I'm not a religious kook. I don't have any need to spiritualize anything or make anything other, you know, way important. And it's just a pragmatic fact that, you know, I'm going to be for my whole life pro the right to choose how I die. Okay, so to me, it's an important event, and I want to control it. And, you know, that's not a difficult argument to understand. It's basically just saying, keep your religious goopy fingers out of, you know, my ground. This is my territory. My death is mine. It doesn't belong to you. You really have no fucking right to be telling me how I'm going to die. I have the right to the same resources you have for wanting to live. I have the same right to those resources and technologies to do it my way. I don't have to live your fucking way. And that kind of simple argument should be understandable. And a lot of these subjects are just that kind of simple. Fuck. Yeah. Maybe I take a pause. All right, something always comes to mind when you go through a little transition. So I was thinking of the another shot against the liberals is, you know, so I saw the mayor of Philadelphia, and you know, she's an idiot, but she just proves it by saying, you know, this moronic crap. I'm the prayer mayor. I mean, that's a reason for me to say I'm not interested in a Democratic Party that's going to do this prayer in school shit and think prayer does something and God and all that. So if they can't even do that, they can't even do the minimum. Look, if that's your personal belief, yeah, have your personal belief, but don't go on TV talking and telling people to pray. Fuck you. All right, you're not a liberal, in my opinion. You're part of the problem, not part of the solution, moron. And, you know, that's the problem. It's just, you can't, it's unstomachable. Being a person coming from the 60s where you had to fight to get God out of public schools, you know, where you had to salute and pray, you know, I mean, fuck that. And, you know, when they can't even do the traditional thing they're supposed to do, which is to say, keep your right-wing Bible thumping, keep it in your own little living rooms, and keep it out of other people's business, you bitch. Yeah. Ugh. But Philadelphia is fucked. I mean, the governor is like, is something going on here? What? I mean, he's like a young Biden. He's like already, he was like born with Alzheimer's. It's probably not fair. But he seems really dim and stupid. You know, even when there's substantial incentives provided to have kids, in the sense that there's a great deal of subsidies, they still won't do it. Right, so that's happening around the world. So again, I always have to throw in the context that all of this conversation doesn't mean anything, because frankly, if we can just figure out how to plug poverty vaginas, the whole thing's over. Okay, we don't got to worry about this anymore, because most intelligent people find life challenging and kind of dicey, okay, a little scary, and they're not all that enthusiastic to make billions and billions of them. You know, and it's just this segment of the population that, you know, is doing their God bothering, and frankly, they're just too stupid to do anything else. They know how to have sex, but they can't figure out how to do anything else. You know, it's a simple fact. They're doing all this. They're creating all of the population problem. You know, asshole religious kooks and whatnot. Silly people, frankly. I mean, it's just, yeah, so, you know, there's just so much of it. It's just like, I can't, yeah, you just can't meet a person who doesn't have some kind of silly crap running them, you know, that they're actually motivated by some kind of insanely silly crap. They belong to some kind of popsicle of the month club. You're like, what? You know, seduced by it, suckered by it. You know, some dopey commercial will sell them a product. Right, so I was just making commentary on how the whole system, you know, what our culture is defined by is being defined by the lowest common denominator. The dumbasses are controlling the strings, because the only way our commerce works is you have to sucker people into buying what they don't need and all that kind of crap, and smart people don't fall for it. So all of the stuff being financed by commercials is guaranteeing that the only stuff they're going to produce is what dumbasses need to hear or want to hear or be entertained by. And that's the only content that's going to be produced, because that's the only content that is going to derive an audience. So, you know, we used to have on cable TV learning channels, and they became the UFO and ghost channel. I mean, it's just so funny, you know, that as soon as they put commercials on it, it had to turn into content for morons, because that's the only way you're going to win. They're not going to play the moronic commercials on the intelligent content, because there's nobody, the morons aren't watching it. The commercials are completely ineffective if they're targeting the wrong, if they're hitting the wrong audience. You know, to do all the musing and the stiff upper lip and, you know, pull up your bootstraps and, you know, all that kind of horse shit. Just a general mocking of, yes, these little cliches that run the world, and the real cliche should be, ain't it awful? I mean, it's, oh, that's terrible. Oh, jeez. It happened again today. Another 120 dead people. Oh, dear. You know, and plus all the ones that died, like I said, I mean, it's not just car crashes, right? I mean, there's lots of other ways to get killed every day. So, I mean, what's the number every day of people who, you know, weren't 95 years old and dropped dead? Okay, we don't need to worry too much about that one. That story isn't going to be that interesting. I mean, you know, nursing home and they died, well, you know, they're better off. So it's not one of the tragic stories. So they could throw those into the happy stories, where finally the dead person died all the way, you know. So those are almost good stories. And but the rest of them are all going to be stories of, you know, all this, you know, hardship and danger that we exist in. That any moment it's all gone. It's all taken away. All your comfort and habits and routines and all of that is all going to be destroyed, and you're just sitting here, you know, underneath all those swords, and you're all you know, whatever, eating your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and going yum yum. That's silly to me. Worth doing, okay, because they're caught up in the narrative of their life, and they're I guess, not quite smart enough to figure out that the narrative of the people around them isn't exactly the same storytelling. Yeah, so that's the real problem, right? Is that all of us, it's, as much as, it's the same world we're brought into, and you would think there would be a lot more consistency in what we found valuable and important, and it's just amazing that there can be as much diversity. It's amazing to me, because the rigid confinement of the blinders of the truth, that is where the truth prohibits you from thinking this and believing that and all this other stuff. It's such a narrow road it produces that you can really defend that. How the hell, it's just like, even like I said, even if you're a meat eater and you enjoy it, you can certainly understand, well, there's something about it just doesn't seem quite right. It's not that hard to notice that, I can't, what am I going to do? Make some silly argument that dogs feel but pigs don't, what good? Dog needs to have a nice day and be happy, but the pigs don't need to have a nice day and be happy. I mean, that's like saying, let's unemploy Canadians because, they're not real humans. Yeah, right. Bizarre. And it's not like, if Mexico and Canada had us over some sort of barrel, like they were taking advantage of the fact that they have all the diamonds in their country and they were charging exorbitant prices for the diamonds. None of that's true here. They just happen to be able to build a plant and employ people and make a product and, do it a little cheaper. And that's what you're complaining about, is that they out-competed you. So this is the part that's just so funny. The Republicans all for this merit crap. Well, why couldn't you figure out how to do it? A Canadian Phil figured it out. I mean, bullshit. I mean, again, the bottom line is they would, they want to. Well, I'm not gonna. I said some of this. The bottom line crap is you're just gonna end up turning your own country into the third world country. They have their own way of, they exist in some substantially different way, but because, okay, so we're back to the subject of our diversity. So it's really is this, whether we like it or not, I can just say it's only one game we're all playing. And the truth is who's describing the real game and who's describing a pile of nonsense that has nothing to do with the real game. And that's the competition here. That's what this argument is about. I can't find any reasonable ground for most of what people are living for or think they're living in. It is, in fact, a bug planet. And we have this huge intelligence, and most of it is being devoted to schemes to make a buck. Some kind of scheme. Bitcoin. Some sort of bullshit. Their small little definition of humanity. And I think you'd really see that if we actually ever did send people to Mars to colonize. All right, so sort of just making the point. I've made this point before. If we're going to send people into space, I'm sure people are going to start saying, hey, there's not enough white people. And even any diversity, they're going to say, well, they're just going to soil, the human race's prodigy into the future. So why do I want to send a bunch of people that aren't going to be anything like me, or that kind of thing? And those are going to be natural thoughts people are going to have, and so the whole thing is not going to work for that reason alone. Besides the fact that the technology is impossible, pretty much. There's too many technical obstacles. I don't think the world is ready. Yeah, not even close. That role playing. But again, it's not changing in the population where it matters, and that is in the third world, in the... Right, so I was just declaring victory again. Like I said, all we need to do is convince smart people that they really have to do something to control dumb people. because dumb people are making a mess. You know, and it's a very expensive mess, and it's very bad for the future, and you really have to fix that. You have to stop the cycle at minimum. So even if you spent one generation paying people not to have kids, the truth is there won't be a next generation of people who think it's a great idea to have kids. You know, a lazy, you know, the people who are just don't mind being social blight. You know, when you don't see your mother and father being social blight, you're not likely to think being social blight is a great idea. We pay a pretty good price to be 30 years old again. You know, so just talking about how, you know, it's just how much of life turns to shit and all that kind of crap, and you know, it's just an honest truth that, you know, I would probably pay I'd sacrifice a lot to just regain the functionality, I suppose. Just the immunity might be all I'm really talking about. You know, because if you're 30 years old, at least you don't have this, the threat isn't as visceral. So it's a little more, you feel a little better because there's more dice to roll. They have fewer skulls and, you know, on them, and you feel more immune. They can't just end it with, well, maybe you should just kill yourself. Even though they already displayed killing yourself as futile in the sense of the crack suicide squad. Yeah, I was talking about Monty Python because that came to mind. It just has so many good themes. I mean, there's just so many great ways it mocks existence. But they couldn't end it with that theme because it had to be upbeat. And it was all humor, you know, it was all funny. But the jokes were on us, so to speak. I mean, the world really is this ludicrous. It really is this impossible. Every character's living a stupid, preposterous, nonsensical, idiotic life. And it looks very much as if, yeah, nothing's really changed. You know, except, you know, we're not wearing natural fibers anymore. But otherwise, yeah, what's the difference? But they couldn't end it, you know, with some solemn statement about maybe we should grow up, you know, and recognize that, you know, life is a piece of shit and it's really not funny. Yes, it's not funny. It's not a joke. It's not a whiz banger. Well, it sort of is a whiz banger. Yeah, that's sort of the plane makes a whiz bang, you know. Being very concerned about having to deal with the fact that what if about all this stuff that can come to kill me. Yeah. I hate to make it personal, but I've noticed it, and it's very difficult to extract it from your mind, this context of, well, don't invest in the future. You know, well, I'd like to plant an apple tree, and I say, don't bother, because you're not going to eat the apples. What's productive, and being able to live a good life because you can make these choices, and that's what's so difficult, is that the truth is subtle. And yeah, so anyway, so even if you spend a lot of time mapping it and figuring out what the right thing to do in life is and all this stuff, first, that's a lot of work, and it still doesn't guarantee anything. So, you know, there's always crap shoot, you know, mixed in. So even if you could convince people to, well, let's invest money in, you know, cure for malaria. I mean, it's probably the #1 cause of misery worldwide. You know, you can't guarantee you'll be able to do it. I mean, I'd go for spending billions to make a perfect lie detector test. You know, just because it'd be just such an advantage to have that, you know, and plug every politician in and, you know, just prevent them from talking shit. You know, it'd be so much better, you know, if all the preachers were hooked up and all the you know, all the all the shit talkers were obligated to actually tell the truth instead of the fables. But yeah, you can't guarantee you'd spend the money and actually make the product. So it doesn't seem like it should be that difficult. I mean, I really don't think that a kid, you know, raised in some atmosphere where they understand that, you know, being social blight sucks. Yeah, it doesn't seem that hard to instill some notion of pride and self-respect. You know, and that you're not you're not really playing the right game if you think the road to victory is to be social blight. I mean, that's not going to work. All right, well, I think that's it. You know, the human spectacle. Yeah. Anyway, so anyway, it's a bit of a mixed video. So I had I was distracted this week, so that's just it. Partly by the last couple of days and the nonsense, and anyway, and you know, there's still just this idea of also trying to get some writing done, which I didn't get done, and well, you know, whatever in life, you know, is in my way. There's all kinds of little crap that you have to deal with in your own little life to get from day to day. So just wasn't, you know, wasn't a very smooth week. I mean, not horrible, but you know, I just didn't get done what I wanted to get done, both as a process of thinking about the subjects that I need to talk about, and I should talk about. And I just couldn't do that with much clarity. So this is the video you get. It's not, you know. Could be worse. I mean, I could, you know, whatever. I could talk about how they don't make very good sneakers anymore. You know, and spend an hour on that. You know, that would be kind of, you know, duh. Yeah, so what? What are you doing about it? How are you going to fix it? Yeah. Anyway, till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.